Hey, this is Charlie. Um, just wanted to make a quick video while I have a second, and I wanted to address the NDE group that I am involved with on Facebook, um, with Eric Jeter, or I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Jeter or Jerdy or something like that. Um, I've met Howard Storm through that group, and um, he has a very well known testimony about near death experiences. And now the theme that I've gotten from that group is that God is basically, not only is he forgiving, but anybody is going to be saved through Jesus, which is a great message of what Jesus is capable of doing, and that is to wipe out all sin. And his death basically has overcome everything. And while I have been struggling with certain aspects of Christianity and the whole concept of having to die, it's almost like Jesus is playing the game of the devil. And but that actually is a rabbit trail in itself, because I don't really. I'm still analyzing that and trying to understand. Now I'm trying to really wrap my head around this whole near-death experience thing, because I've been investigating it for about a year now, pretty steadily, trying to fully embrace the patterns and the messages that come from the near-death experiences. And the fact that there is patterns in near-death experiences says that there's something to be said about the afterlife. There's something to it. Now, the thing that I get from the Bible is that there has been near-death experiences that are recounted by Paul, by John, by Stephen. These are people that have had close to death encounters, or death encounters that they have had a vision of heaven. And now, one of the patterns that I notice about near-death experiences is that oftentimes the background of that person is manifested to them on a personal level. So if they're a Christian, they're going to experience a Christian type experience. And but then there's New Age, or I don't want to use the word New Age, or the title New Age, but like I don't know if I recall hearing a lot about a Mormon near-death experience, but I get the feeling that I heard something about them experiencing a Mormon type of experience. And then I also think about the ones that really throw me for a loop are the ones that are like Indian in nature, or even Native American type experiences. They're very spiritual, very, they encounter their family members, and even the Christian ones that will encounter their family members. And it's almost like there's some sort of pattern of a higher power that is appealing to what hits us in the heart. Something that maybe we'll be able to learn from that experience, or take something back to our life so that we can share it. Now, I do know that there is a pattern of love, and love across the board, whether it's one belief to the next. It seems to me like there is a pattern of love. And even the feeling that you get from love is overwhelming. And it's interesting to me that that is like a universal language. Um, and that's why in pretty much all Christian perspectives, you'll know God is the God of love, and God is love. And so if we are drawn into this concept of love, relationship is derived from love. Just the sense of security is often derived from love. And, love comes naturally to people. They're raised into it. They'll they'll give an outpouring of love that they've learned. I only think about that even in the broken home that I was raised into. I know that my son is going to be so loved because of what I've learned of love. Now, granted, there are people out there that experience hellish lives, but I still think that there's that sense of relationship and love ingrained in them, even if there's evil in the world that they're exposed to. And I speak that with ignorance. I don't really know for sure. I've never had to go to a third world country. But I was very inspired by some news broadcasts that I heard last night. It was like a world news type of thing. It was talking about all the major news events that are happening. And it was pure drama, I'll be honest. It was talking about the Notre Dame cathedral burning, and it was talking about the bombings that happened in Sri Lanka on Easter, it's as I'm thinking about this, there is a theme of Christianity being under attack, especially in the media, and they often will demonize the Christianity, whether it be Catholic or Protestant, it doesn't matter. Even now, the interesting thing is, Judaism is under a lot of attack nowadays, but I don't think it's from the media per se. It's the conspiracy people, or just the racists that hate Jews, and to me, there's all these. I think about the scripture that says this battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and the rulers that are basically dangling all the political leaders from a string, and we're all puppets of our submission. We wherever we submit, we're going to be doing the will of to whatever we're adhering to. And I was thinking about, there was another near-death experience from a Muslim, and they were talking about how Allah was all over, and they experienced Allah as a spirit, and that they were in some sort of paradise. Paradise is another theme that people will come back and say, I got to see everything that was like all the flowers that were so colorful, and the grass that didn't die when you stepped on it, it bounced back. And I mean, I've heard it more than one occasion from different perspectives. And, that's interesting that, it doesn't matter what background you're coming from, you'll get a similar theme. But the difference is their interpretation of it often seems like it's coming from, Allah, the God of Islam, or Christianity, Jesus, God the Father. And they'll see little patterns of things that are like little traditional type things that they believe. I honestly am beginning to think that it's possible that this higher power on the other side, higher power as in God or the architect or whatever, somehow has a system in place to appeal to us on a personal level, and we can actually take those situations and I honestly feel that we share the love of God. Now, granted, there are experiences of hell and suffering and eternal outer darkness or whatever, and I do believe that that is a real place. And I do believe that now hell is in the sense of eternal torment. I'm not sure about the eternal hellfire, but granted, I'm actually about to teach a group on Wednesday night. We're going to get into Jude, and it talks about eternal hellfire in Jude, which I'm probably going to have to do a breakdown of, what that actually means, because I know that Gehenna, Sheol, and there's different translations of what hell is, and to say eternal hell fire, eternal suffering, obviously our perspective in humanity would actually interpret eternal hellfire as being suffering that is never ceasing and will always be forever. I mean, how can you interpret that any other way? But I do struggle with it only because I don't feel like eternal or this loving being that sends that message back from all near-death experiences is eternal love, but then there's eternal torment and eternal fear. There is some sort of opposition on the other side. There is a battle that is taking place, a battle for our soul. And there are themes within some of these near-death experiences that says that, we're here as we're training. we're trying to be, better, better spirit beings, or trying to achieve some sort of godhood or be like Christ or whatever, or be Christ. But, it kind of throws me for a loop, because sometimes I'm thinking about this stuff and I don't know what to believe. There's another guy that had a near-death experience, and I don't remember his name right now, but he had a hell experience. And he was talking about going to these he was basically being escorted by this demon creature that was beautiful and hideous at the same time. And I think he said it looked something like a reptile or like a dinosaur or something. And I believe that this was after he had an encounter with God, and he was actually being escorted to hell or to outer darkness. And he was talking about how he was telling God that he deserved everything that he got. And I hope I'm not blending different near-death experiences together, because I've heard hundreds of near-death experiences. But as he's being escorted down this path or whatever, and forgive me if I don't say this exactly right, but there's a few little key points that stuck out to me. He was basically seeing these little pods where people were being deceived, and like they were in this outer darkness where each of these little pods were actually being overseen by like these demonic creatures. And now, on one hand, one of the pods was actually being controlled and manipulated by this demonic entity, but this little girl or something was, or maybe as an older woman, I'm not sure, but they went back to a place of their childhood, and it was their grandmother's ranch or something, and it was their place of comfort, but later came to find it was like actually the place of torment, because they manipulated and diluted it to become a place of torment. And now I started wondering, like, you know how in the Matrix, and again, I know that the Matrix is just somebody's, you know, imagination or whatever, but when you see Neo, when he wakes up and he comes out of this this little pod where he's been living all of his existence since they started growing him from a baby, and then he started looking around. And he's like, oh my gosh, there's pods all over the place with people in there, and he's like flipping out. And I kind of liken that experience that guy was having to that, where he started realizing, wait, I'm in a little pod, and are they actually going to put me in a pod where I'm going to be deceived? And or maybe he was just given some sort of revelation as to what it might be. Now, if this guy is having a near-death experience that's like that, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe he's the one that actually got the true insight of what near-death experiences are. You know, they're appealing to that person's desires because they want to show that person comfort. But what if this angel of light, which I've actually talked about in other videos, is guiding them into a place of pseudo love or pseudo happiness, and then once they get a grip of that person, they're going to actually be ushered into this place of torment or whatever it might be. I don't know. Which really throws me for a loop, because it kind of makes me wonder where God is in all this. Is God allowing these things to happen? Is there like a yin-yang type thing, or the yin and the yang, where you have darkness and you have light? And where light is, there is no darkness. But if you're in the darkness and there's no light, then what does that mean? Does that mean that light doesn't have the ability to overcome the darkness? Well, obviously, in certain near-death experiences, such as Howard Storm, Ian McCormick, they're in outer darkness, and they're being tormented. And then they see this bright light that shows up out of, you know, the darkness, and it destroys all the light. It's pretty amazing, but I'm trying to unravel all this stuff, and it's very deep. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that, and hope that anybody that might have any insights, give me some feedback. I hope to hear from you soon. All right, thanks. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.